everyone. It's Periscope time. It's Belinda Weaver here. Thanks very much for tuning in. If you are tuning in live, I can see a few names popping up, which is brilliant to see. So I'm just going to flip the camera around. Here we go. Hi, and I'll just adjust this so you don't see the top of my desk. Oh, some hearts already. That's nice. Cool. Hi. So yeah, I'm Belinda Weaver and this is my regular Periscope. It's Thursday night Pacific time, which makes it 2 p.m. Australia time. So today I want to talk about how to get the attention of some industry influencers. Now, this isn't going to be a chat about, your standard recommendations, emailing them, talk to them on social media, stuff like that. I'm going to share something that I've hit upon quite recently that I'm not sure a lot of people are doing. And it's helped me, buddy up with some of my favourite thought leaders like Sonia Simone, Darren Farnsworth, Jared Morris, a lot of the copy blogger team, and there's heaps of other people. But first I want to share a story. And this is the story of, thank you for sharing it on Twitter, Robbie. Thank you very much. This is the story of the first time I met Sonia Simone. Now, if you don't know who Sonia Simone is, she's the co-founder of Copy Blogger. You might have heard of Copy Blogger. And she has a podcast now called Confessions of a Pink-Hand Marketer. And I met her at the... another Belinda tuning in. Thanks very much. So I met Sonia Simone for the first time at the Pro Blogger Conference. It was years and years ago. It was my very first Pro Blogger Conference. It was lunchtime. And I saw the lady Sonia sitting on her own. And I thought, well, there is a fly buzzing around me. That's annoying. This is a great opportunity to go and introduce myself and make an impression, Hi, Kylie. Thanks for tuning in. So I see Sonia. I go over there and I say, hi, Sonia. My name's Belinda. And, of course, if you tuned into last week's Periscope, you would have known that instantly made me kind of blush like an internal furnace. And she went, oh, hi. It's nice to meet you, Belinda. And then we just kind of looked at each other because I hadn't really thought it through. I had nothing else to really say. Oh, really love your posts on Copy Blogger. Anyway, it was nice because Sonia is super nice, but it was awkward, to be honest. I got back in the lunch line and I kind of just slunk away. That's fine, but that's not really how you want to get the attention of industry influencers. That's not going to get them interested in what you're doing. So this time, when I met Sonia Simone a second time, it was actually at the Rainmaker Authority Conference in Denver. And this time I went up and I went, hi, Sonia, my name is Belinda. And she went, of course. Hi, Belinda. It's really great to see you in person. And the reason, yes, Robbie's just said, I think we've all had those moments, super awkward. Now, the reason this whole experience, this conversation changed was because of the tip that I'm going to share with you today. We went on to chat about meditation and finding our inner zen and stuff like that, because that's something we had in common. And the reason I knew that is because I listened to Sonia's podcast. So that's a bit of a spoiler alert about what we're going to be talking today. So don't forget, if you're liking this, you can tap the screen, give me hearts, you can share it on Twitter, because this is a really, really great tip, actually. And you can also read more on my blog, copyrightmatters.com/blog. This is the most recent post. So you can also kind of dig into a bit more detail there and share that on your social media profile if you want to. Or you can leave a comment there as well. So the question I have for the people tuning in is, who is your industry influence of choice? Now, an industry influencer isn't just someone who is a big name in the industry. This is an industry influencer is someone people genuinely follow. Thought leader is another phrase. I think they tend to be the people speaking at conferences and not just kind of educating, but the people that when the attendees walk away, they just go, oh my God, my mind was blown. That was amazing. They're the ones setting the new direction for your relevant industry. So if you have someone in mind that you just like, oh my God, my palms get sweaty when I think about talking to them, let me know in the comments. you know, for me, it was pretty much the entire copy blogger team. And also even, you know, in Australia, Darren Rouse from Pro Blogger, Todd Samson. Cool. I don't know who that is. Let me know who that is, Belinda. I feel a bit embarrassed that I don't know who that is. And Danielle Laporte, yes, another big name. Another one for me is Anne Handley, and I met her at the Denver conference, but I kind of fangirled her in a slightly weird way. So I'd like to get the chance to meet her again and maybe put my tips from today in action. So if you get the chance to meet these people, potentially, how would you make an impression? Now, you could do it at a conference, like the first time I met Sonia Simone, but, you know, getting to talk to the speakers or industry influencers at a conference can, and this is something I've explained in my blog, is a bit like Mission Impossible. You've got to spot them. You've got to work out how many people are around them. You've got to Robbie says Belinda Weaver. Robbie. Now, Robbie's posting links and everything for me. She's helping me out on this Periscope, so thanks, Robbie. Much love to you. You know, so you've got to find your industry influencer. You've got to spot them in the crowd. You've got to sort of inch yourself closer to them with your cup of tea and try and look really casual. Then you've got to integrate your way into the conversation, all while not looking like a weirdo. And then suddenly, at the exact moment when it's actually quiet, because you know there's heaps of other people there, you've got to say something hugely insightful or witty and make that incredible first impression. Like the Sonia Simone story I told, it's never happened for me that way at all. I don't know anyone it has worked for. So, you know, another way is you could email them. Now, I find emailing someone out of the blue much like cold calling. And, you know, it basically reads like, damn fly. It basically reads like you saying, hi, industry influencer. I would really like the opportunity to sell my stuff to the audience that you've spent a lot of time building up. It's really schmucky, I think, and it's really tough to pull off. It's not impossible, but I think it is tough to pull off. You know, then you can talk to them on social media and maybe on their blog. But I find social media, it's really noisy, it's really busy, it's really hard to get their attention without doing commenting on almost everything they're doing for a long period of time. And when it comes to blogs, a lot of big blogs have closed their comments now. Thanks, spammers. And so, you know, it's impossible to actually have those discussions that used to happen in the comments section of a lot of big blogs of industry influencers and thought leaders. So, you know, that's kind of off the table now. So, you know, what are we left with? We're left with the newest kid on the content marketing block, and that is podcasts. You know, podcasts are so hot right now. Oh, okay, cool. Belinda just posted a Twitter handle, Tom Sampson Oz. I will check him out. Thanks very much for posting that to me, Belinda. And thanks for joining in. So, podcasts, so hot right now. I have a podcast with another copywriter, Kate Toon. It's called Hot Copy Podcast. We talk about copywriting, funnily enough. You should check it out. But pretty much everyone has a podcast these days, and industry influencers have had podcasts for years, actually. So the big tip I have for you, wait for it, drum roll, get involved in the podcast. And I don't mean create your podcast or get on the podcast, but podcasts have websites. Websites have comments, and the comments on podcasts are 99% open. And barely anyone is commenting on podcasts. Like, it sounds so simple, yeah? But this is how I have actually got to know a lot of the people that I then followed up and met at the Denver Rainmaker Authority Conference. That's how Sonia Simone knew who I was when I went up and introduced myself again. And I got to meet most of the Copy Blogger team. And the beauty is, if they don't know you from the comments, you have an in for conversation. You have to say, you can say, oh, I loved your recent podcast about blah, you know, stuff like that. I got to meet Stephanie Flaxman, who has Editor-in-Chief podcast, and she once talked about how she did yoga, something quite specific. So when I could straight up and introduce myself, I instantly could say, I listened to your podcast where you talked about doing the sun salutations, and we instantly had something to talk about. When I met Sonia Simone, I said, oh, I heard about, you mentioned that you love doing meditation on your podcast about this. Which is the app that you were referencing? And we had something to talk about. But more than that, you want to leave comments on the podcast that are further discussion, are insightful. And you can do that in a few ways. You can don't just say great podcast and leave it at that, because that's just a bit boring, to be honest. You could say a specific note or a point in the podcast that you're going to implement or you found interesting, maybe something you disagree with, something you found, Blue Emerald, great Twitter handle. Thanks for joining in. I'm just talking about how when you comment on podcasts and you get involved with the discussion, there's hardly anyone there and you can get to know some industry influencers. It also gives you some great things to talk about them if you ever get to meet them in person. So the other thing you can do is most podcasts have a Q&A at some point. They have questions from their listeners. And I've actually been on, not verbally been on, but I've had my questions answered on two big podcasts. Sonia Simone's Confessions of a Pinkhead Marketer, which is brilliant, by the way, and also Jared Morris's, who's on Copy Blogger, his podcast, The Showrunner. Now, I got these questions answered before I went to the conference, so that was another thing for me to talk about with these people. Robbie says, I'm quoting podcasts to clients all the time. So much great content. That's absolutely right. It's the new blog, really, which is why if you want to get the attention of someone you really admire, you need to find their podcast and you need to start getting involved in the comment section. So as I said, I like pointing out a favourite point. Amy Harrison, who's a UK copywriter, she's so much more than a copywriter, but, I fangirl Amy pretty hard. And she's just taken over the Hit Publish podcast, which is about taking action with all your marketing. And she had a particular point that when you're writing, you can get distracted with things that you have to do. Maybe it's grocery shopping, maybe it's the next blog post, things like that. And she recommended that you actually have a separate notebook for what she called sticky thoughts. And as you can see, this is mine, Sticky Thoughts Notebook, yeah? So when I'm trying to get something done and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, have I got the visa done? I need to put that on the shopping list. Have I got the snacks ready for tomorrow? I put it down in my sticky notes notebook and I think I will come back to that. So when I heard that tip, I jumped straight onto the podcast and told Amy how amazing I thought it was and how I was going to implement it. And Amy responded. And then a few days later, I posted another comment on that particular podcast episode and let her know how it was going. So this is continuing the conversation. And she replied again. And we've picked up that conversation on Twitter as well. So if I get the chance to meet Amy, with continued investment in getting to know her or her getting to know me on social media and her podcast episodes, if I get the chance to meet her at a conference, hopefully she'll know who I am. You see? It's so simple, but it's really, really works. And hardly any people are commenting on podcasts of some of the biggest names, well, certainly in the copywriting and marketing industry. So, if you've got a favorite industry influencer you would like to get to know, look for their podcast, look for the website of the podcast, and start getting involved in the discussions in the comments. And remember, if they have a Q&A episode, post a question. Post a good question. It'll not only help you nut through a particular challenge, but you might get your question answered on the podcast and get mentioned. So when I was on the Showrunner, but when my question was answered on the Showrunner, which is a podcast about podcasting, very meta, Jared linked to me in the social media updates. And then when Sonia answered my question on her podcast, Confessions of a Pinkhead Marketer, she actually put a link back to my website as well and linked to me in social media. So that's great link love, great for SEO. And it also just kind of got my name linked with her, and I got a question answered. Like, it's just a win-win-win. Thanks, Robbie, for saying what a great tip. I think this is a really remarkable way to get the attention of some people you admire that it just doesn't seem like anyone else is doing. So, get in there, find the podcast, get involved in the discussions, and don't forget to follow up on social media. If you want to reach out and email them, at least you've got some specific things to mention, some work to mention and stuff like that. So that's it. That's me. Thanks, Belinda. Belinda says, that's awesome. Yeah, I think it is awesome, actually, and that's what I had to write a blog about it. I almost periscoped about this last week, but I thought, no, this is too good to just, mention on the fly. This is a blog post. So check out the blog at copyrightmatters.com/blog. It's the most recent post, and it's called How to Get the Attention. It's called The Little Known Way, but Crazily Effective Way to Get the Attention of Industry Influencers Without Sounding Like a Schmuck. So that's it. Now, I'd love to know if anyone has any questions. I've just kind of laid it out there. So if you don't have any questions, that's cool. Don't forget you can share the scope on Twitter. You just hit the little man or woman, hit the non-gender specific person in the corner, and you'll get a little pop-up and it'll say share on Twitter. And you can let your followers know that this is about to be wrapped up, but they can catch the replay as well. And I would like to thank you for your time. Actually, before you go, just quickly, I want to show you a new addition to my office. It's a poster. Let's freestyle this. Look. It's a poster. Missy, who's the master, and Doctor Who. Hearts for any Doctor Who fans. This is big. I got it in my last Doctor Who magazine, and I haven't put a poster up on my wall since I was probably in high school. So just fangirling over Peter Capaldi. But Belinda asked me a question. Thanks for that comment. Awesome, Blue Emerald. So Belinda said a list of my favourite podcasts. Okay, so I'm going to reel them off now. Now, you'll probably know me. I'm a copywriter, so I listen to writing podcasts. One called Rough Draft by Damien Farnsworth, and he's the chief content writer for Copyblogger. I also listen to a podcast by Copyblogger called The Lead, which is kind of writing and content marketing and things like that, basically what Copyblogger publish. I listen to Sonia Simone's Confessions of a Pinkhead Marketer because she's just so freaking awesome and nice, and her advice makes sense. One of my favourites, Belinda's making Doctor Who jokes there, I like it. One of my favourite never miss podcasts is the podcast by Sean D'Souza he's Sean D'Souza of Psychotactics, and it's called 3 Month Vacation. So if you don't listen to any other podcasts, I recommend you check this one out. And Sean's super responsive on Twitter, so that's I'm not sure actually if he has comments. He has a podcast on his website, so I tend to talk to him on Twitter, and he's very responsive. But he gives super actionable tips about making your marketing more effective. Really interesting stuff. It's all psychology, really tactical, really implementable, and really interesting. He produces a really nice podcast. So I listen to some writing ones, some marketing ones, and I like to wind down with some podcasts. I listen to BBC Radio 4 Comedy. I listen to something called There's No Such Thing as a Fish. If anyone knows the QI show, the British show, quite interesting with Stephen Fry. It's all about quite interesting facts. It's so much more entertaining than that. But they actually have a podcast, so that is a super interesting one. And the final podcast I always listen to is something called The Nerdist, which is all about nerdy stuff, pop culture, sci-fi, comedy, TV shows, movies, stuff like that. So, I kind of balance it because I tend to listen to podcasts while I'm walking with my dog, who you might be able to hear gently snoring in the background. I listen while I'm walking, or I'm cooking, or I'm doing something else. I often have a sneaky ear in. But I find if I listen to too many work-oriented podcasts, my brain just kind of feels a bit full and cluttered. So I like to listen to some entertainment ones as well. So I'd love to know yours. Do you have a favourite podcast? Share it, because I'm always on the hunt. It's kind of like favourite blogs for me. I'm culling my list all the time, looking for new ones, having listened to a couple of episodes. My podcast, Hot Copy Podcast, as I said, you can search for it in iTunes. You will find it. And Kate and I talk about copywriting and marketing and being a copywriter. So if you're a copywriter, that's definitely one to tune in. That's it. That's all I wanted to cover today. So thanks for sharing this time with me. I hope you have a fabulous weekend. You can check out the blog at copyrightmatters.com/blog. And if you like the post there, you can actually subscribe to the blog. And I have this download 20 incredible copywriting tips that will transform the way you write about your business. It's a good headline, huh? But you can get that for free, and then you'll just get all the latest blog posts as they're published, so you'll never miss one. So thanks for tuning in, especially to the new people. Nice to see you, Belinda. I hope we chat soon. Thanks for your help, Robbie, and have an awesome weekend.